This is just an update on where I am with the replacement of the timing chain on the Mercedes C180 m271 engine. I've got my crankshaft harmonic balancer set at top dead center. Double check that with my feeler stick here on the top of the piston for finding its top reach of the compression stroke. You'll find that your lobe for your exhaust camshaft, those lobes should be facing upwards, and these lobes here on the intake camshaft should also be facing upwards, as these valves will all be closed as it's on a compression stroke in the forced cycle engine. Those of you know what I'm talking about there. So I suggest if you're going to go and do this job that you need to get some tools ready first. So you can't do this job well unless you have the proper chain braking and riveting tool set. This thing is excellent, works perfectly, very happy with it, no problems with that. You can buy those online. But a tool that I didn't buy, that I have now gone and bought, is the bridge plate which goes over the top of the camshafts here. It fits into that little slot there and into that little slot there, and is a flat on the camshaft. It's a 35mm flat, and that plate is a lock-in plate that actually slips down over there, and it bolts down here on the where is it down there? There's a bolt down there, and there's a bolt in there, bolts on there to hold it all in place. That is to hold the two camshafts with the timing marks perfectly aligned. So I've ordered that, and it'll be here in a couple of weeks. It's coming from Sydney, Australia. It's the nearest place that I could find one from. Really hard to get stuff here in New Zealand at the moment, and so that's unfortunately a 2-week shipping delay. I really don't think you can do the job well without that tool, so that's why I'm pausing on the job until that arrives. I've just cable tied my chain together to stop it flopping around there. I'll be, of course, undoing that cable tie, bringing the chain over to this side, tying it off, and bringing this side of the chain over to this side and tying it off. And in this kit that I've bought, it also has the tool to remove the variable valve timing actuators, I should say, off the camshaft. So I'm going to actually take this front section here off. I'll drain the water, of course, take this front section off, remove these two actuators. That'll definitely allow me to replace this guide. That's the guide which is supported at the top here by that hole, and then the tensioner pushes onto that side there. There's a little bit of a bulge there that it presses against, and it keeps the tension on this side of the chain. There's a little bit hard to see where I've got it at the moment, but I'll move my light soon, we'll have a look at that. There's a little plug you've got to pull out and then put in a small bolt, and with a nut against, to slowly pull the pin out, so that you can actually replace this guide. I don't believe you can replace the guide without actually taking the actuator out. So I'm going to do that while I've got it down the stage. I'll also put a new thermostat in here while I'm there as well. I'm not so sure how I'm going to make out on this side to replace this guide here. It's got 3 pins. I can see the top and the middle pin. The lower one may be too hard to get to. It may actually be behind the main crankshaft pulley. If it is, I just may not be able to replace that. I don't want to strip down the front of the engine any further than this top plate here. So that guide there may not actually get installed. I don't think it's a big deal. I think looking at it, it's a one-piece material. whereas this one here has a wear surface on it. And I've put my boroscope camera down there. I can't see any grooving or wear in this slide section, but I think that it's so close to being able to access it and replace it that I will go ahead and do that, especially now that I've got to wait a little while. Well, in fact, I can't do that until this tool arrives, because I want to undo these actuators, or that actuator anyway. So yeah, it's one of those things you sort of can't do something before something else is in place first. That's okay, I'm not in a big rush on the completion of the job. So my chain tensioner is going to remain out until I have got my camshafts all locked in place for my timing marks, lining up with my crankshaft pulley there, and I've then inserted my joiner master bit, just down in here. It's my little joiner there. Ended up buying one of these units here, but I didn't end up using it in the end to pull my chain through, but I would recommend it. This is actually a great tool to have, or great master link there to have, to pull your old chain out with your new chain in. I ended up actually making one out of the links of my old chain, and that worked fine. I just put a gentle rivet on it so that the plate here wouldn't fall off, and then I just pushed it out with my little pin after I'd finished the job, because this here arrived a day late, just as it happens to be, and I got a bit impatient, so I decided that I would go ahead with this, and it actually works well. So if you don't have one of these master links here, you can go about it without using your finished master link. You can make one up out of a link off your old chain. This is my completed master link. I'm saving it to when I'm completely ready to join the chain together. This here gets pressed on, and then as it gets pressed on, I then use another tool to then rivet the end over, and it'll be good for the life of the chain. So that's pretty much where I am at the moment. I would have been able to get into this job with more completion in a shorter time if I'd actually bought the tool that goes across here first. But I was just trying to see what I could get away with, and to do the job properly you really have to invest a certain amount of money. Now I can sell those tools later. I'm sure there'll be a good market here for somebody wanting to buy these tools once I'm finished with them, and that actually reduces the cost of the job down quite a lot. Of course, once I put my tension in, this will then tighten up my chain and everything. Yeah, so I'm hopeful that the whole job is going to carry on well. So far I've had no major problems, just the little bit of frustration while I'm waiting for parts to arrive, or tools to arrive. Certainly I think my plan and my approach to get the little bit of light down there, to get the actual tensioner in and out, that works well. So I haven't had to go and do any major disconnections on the alternator. Just resting it forward has given me all of the space that I need. So that may be some tip to some of you, or a tip to some of you, that may speed the job up a little bit. I've gone for my torque wrench actually, which has got a real long reach to it, and it's got a ratchet on it, so it's just perfect for barring over the engine. Most ratchets are a little bit shorter in the handle, and it means you've got to really get your hand down inside there to get that movement. So that's a little tip. You can see it's nice and accessible on the handle there. Just trying to think if there's anything else I can sort of mention at this stage, I have put the new slipper on here. The old one actually broke getting it off anyway. There's a little barb sitting about here that is a one-way. It's got a little one-way wedge on it. When you push it on, it actually clips down into a little hole in the bottom of the bracket here, and so it was quite brittle, I guess, after its time being here with the temperature and everything over those years. So as I tried to tap it off, it actually just split. The new one is more pliable, and it just tapped on from this direction, and then as you push it in, actually I just push it by hand I think, and it just clips in nicely at that position there. The old one had no wear on it after all that time, so whatever this material is, maybe some sort of Teflon material, it certainly does not have any wear on it. I'm not too sure just how much pressure is actually on it, on that slipper, as the chain goes over it. I would imagine once the chain's actually flying around there, it's probably just slipping, may not actually be touching it. But if it is, it's certainly not got any real weight on it. A paint pen is a really good idea for putting all of your marks in place. Makes it a little bit easier to see as they're coming into position. So as you can tell, my inlet's got to move a little bit that way, and my exhaust has got to go a little bit that way. Once I get those all lined up properly, I'll put the chain into the sprocket teeth and pull it around nicely so that everything is all sitting good before I put my master link in place. Also double checking that my chain is sitting inside of the guide. It's important that the chain is sitting inside of the guide here, not off to one side. That's very important. It may sound obvious, but you've got to make sure that it is, because it can actually get out of alignment if you're poking around down there. So again, you can see that quite easily when you've got this front cover here removed. The design of this engine is that the actual thermostat is in here, and so I've got to drain the water out of the radiator, undo these two bolts. They're quite long bolts that go quite a way in to the head. When they come out, I can just sort of twist this piece here and just pull this out. It's a fairly long sleeve with a thermostat at the back of it, and I'm hopeful that no coolant's going to run down into the engine oil. So I imagine, I haven't done this before, so I imagine once it's completely drained, it should be it shouldn't have any coolant in that area that's going to drop down into the sump. But I'll be looking very carefully to make sure that doesn't happen. So happy if anybody would like to offer any comments, maybe tips that will help me as well. This is the first time I've ever done this job. I've done a number of timing belts, but first time I've done a timing chain, and but I'm pretty happy the way it's progressing. I'm looking forward to the engine having a nice silent startup and running nice and quietly as well once this is all boxed up and the engine's running again. This is the only part of the car which was really concerning me. The rest of the car actually behaves really nicely. Transmission is shifting nicely. Everything is behaving really well for a car that's a 2004. I think it's a credit to both its previous owner and also the excellence, should I say, of Mercedes engineering. Okay, well, thank you for just taking an interest in this. Just a little update on where I am. Probably won't be putting up any more videos for a while on this job until my camshaft locking tool arrives, and then I'll put a video in place as I have that fitted and start to remove the actuators from the camshafts. All the best. Catch you a little bit later on.